You're listening to the Your Today Story podcast, and I am your host, Gina Kershaw. Before we get started, I want to quickly remind you that I will be hosting a workshop on Thursday, September 2nd, on how to create a quick morning routine that's going to help kick your subconscious mind into gear so that you can start realizing your goals and dreams faster. If you feel like you're not hitting the goals you have for yourself fast enough or as fast as you hoped you could, then this 2-minute mindset hack that you do first thing in the morning is going to be exactly what you need. And you can get more information and register at yourtodaystory.com. In today's episode, we are going to talk about having expectations, how they make you feel, what they do to you in your relationships. And then we're going to talk about how you can lower or turn off these expectations so that you can start feeling more peace in your life. It's a concept that has had just a huge impact on me. It's a concept that's brought a lot of peace to my life. So if you've been feeling like life is just not going the way you want it to right now, if you're having just, feeling some resentment or anxiousness or worry, then this podcast is going to be right up your alley. So stay tuned. Hi there. I'm Gina Kershaw, a former criminal defense attorney that has helped thousands of women get back on their feet and move forward after challenging times in their lives. Building on that experience, I've spent the last 15 years mentoring, motivating, and coaching women to see their true potential so they can take action toward living their dreams. This podcast bridges the gap between where you are now and where you want to be by giving you the tools to find your purpose, get control over your emotions and feelings, and start having an impact for good for yourself and everyone around you. These tools are life-changing and will help you to obtain all that you desire, whether it's a successful business or simply peace and clarity in your life. So glad to have you here. Welcome to the podcast. Okay. I remember hearing this podcast from Brooke Castillo, and she said that she had the answer to a great marriage. When she said that, I perked up. Everybody always kind of wants to know something that's going to help their marriage. And she said the answer was to have no expectations. Really? I mean, at first I thought she was joking. I thought she was kidding, but she wasn't. And she said, yes, have no expectations except to have the expectation that your spouse will be there to love you. And the more that I thought about it, I realized that having no expectations could really improve my feelings about my marriage. Just like as a quick example, if I set the trash bag out by the door, expecting Kenny to take it out and he doesn't, well, that could start my day off pretty bad. Because I imagine walking out to the kitchen, seeing the bag just sitting there by the door, and I'd be like, damn it. But if I set out the bag, having no expectations of him even remembering it, but knowing I would be grateful if he did, then if I walk out in the morning and see it, I'm not going to have the same type of reaction. And so this could really work for any scenario. Of course, there's going to be major expectations in a marriage. Like I expect my partner to be faithful and to love me. But today I want to talk to you about the daily expectations that we have for everyone around us that can leave us feeling resentful or sad or angry or hurt. And hopefully after listening to this podcast, you're going to begin to notice when those thoughts come to mind. So you'll be able to notice these expectations that you have better so that you can love more unconditionally and just really start enjoying your life more. The reason why I want to talk about this subject on the podcast is because, people always seem to be looking for something that is going to make them happy. Like, what's something I can do that can bring more happiness into my life? And this is really one of those things. This is something that can totally bring more peace and happiness into your life because having expectations for the people and situations in your life, right? It's the fastest way to make you dissatisfied and unhappy. When you have expectations about how someone is supposed to be or how a situation is supposed to play out, then you're basing your happiness and the quality of your day and your life on the behavior of another person. And you probably know by now that you can't control another person's behavior. So if you're waking up with anxiety or worry or anger because of another person, then you are only affecting the quality of your own life. And you deserve so much better. And it can be so much better if you begin to control these thoughts. It might sound counterintuitive, but lowering your expectations can really help. And I'm not talking about the expectations that you have for yourself and what you can accomplish. I'm talking about the expectations you have for your kids or your spouse and the neighbor that lets his dog bark all day. I'm talking about those ones. I can think of a time in my life when my hopes and my expectations for my children really brought me a lot of worry. Like it just brought so much worry and anxiety into my daily life when I would think about where they were and what they were doing. I was raised in the Mormon church, and there was a point when I became so concerned about a few of my children that it was like torture thinking about their lives and the decisions they were making. Back then, I was really hoping my son would serve a mission. And when he just became just disinterested in church, like didn't really want to go anymore, he stopped following, the rules that they had in place. I have to admit, I just went to this dark place. I looked at the other boys his age who seemed to be doing, all these things right, like getting good grades and excelling in sports and, sending out college applications and preparing to serve missions. And I just felt this heavy feeling in my body. It was like my heart just hurt so much. And it was almost like a feeling of grief. It affected my breathing. It was like my insides were clenched up with worry all the time, just all of these emotions. I mean, I wonder, have you ever felt this way before about someone that you love? It was scary. And every time I went down that rabbit hole, it just hurt more. And I kept thinking he just has so much potential. He's smart. He's handsome. He's great with people. He's kind. He's good. He's, dependable. He's responsible. He creates opportunities with people. I'm like, I could see so much potential for him. And I was literally torturing myself with all of these other things like, what's he going to end up doing? And I kept thinking about this future that I felt like he was not living up to. I felt like he was letting it go, and it made me literally ill. That was kind of the beginning of my journey on this road of self-awareness and self-improvement and personal development journey. And it was when I started learning more about coaching and self-coaching and how our thoughts can affect every aspect of our lives. They do affect every aspect of our lives. They affect the way we feel. Our thoughts affect the things we do and say. They affect the lives that we lead and whether we are living, a life that's peaceful and content and happy, or living lives where we are constantly in this worry mode. So I decided I had to get control of these thoughts because this grief feeling that I continued to have it was really weighing me down. So I started listening to other people's similar experiences, and I got a lot of hope from that. I started listening to podcasts from Jody Moore. She does some really good discussions about things like this. I'll link to all of these in the show notes, by the way. I listened to Brooke Castillo, and then I came across this, the work of Byron Katie. I don't know if you've heard of Byron Katie, but she is this well-known thought leader. in this personal development space. And she has influenced the lives of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people, including world leaders, celebrities, millionaires, entrepreneurs, moms, teachers. I mean, everybody. She teaches this method of thinking called the work. She calls it the work. And basically what it is that it's a series of questions that you ask about the thoughts that you have, to figure out how these thoughts are affecting you. And it's actually such a great program. It's such a great method of thinking that I use it in my paid program, the Your Today's Story Experience, because it's just so powerful. But one of the most impactful things that I learned from Byron Katie is her philosophy to love what is. Loving what is about loving every situation and person, even the difficult ones. It's about loving everything, good or bad, every challenge, all aspects of life. If you were to tell her about a disappointment in your life and that it wasn't supposed to happen that way, her response would be, she's very direct and on point, but her response would be to tell you that it was supposed to happen because it did. Nothing happens without a reason. And whether you believe in God or in the power of the universe, all things that happen during your life are designed to happen in exactly that particular way. And that's not something we always want to hear, right? That's especially when things happen that are very hurtful. We don't want to hear, well, that was supposed to happen. So in hearing that, it's like, what can I take from that I can learn from? And I decided that thinking that way only helps me to feel better. Knowing that things happen based upon, what God or the universe has designed, and that everything is for my own good, for my highest good, for the highest good of my children, does make me feel better. And so when I put this mindset to work, I realized I could let go. I could let go of this worry and anxiety about other people in my life that I had, and it was okay. It was totally okay to let go. I felt some guilt at first, thinking like, should I let go of this worry that I have for my son or my other kids? And I realized that it was okay. It was okay to let go of it because they are exactly where they are supposed to be in their life journey, just like me. Worrying and feeling sick about someone else's choices or decisions is not going to change the fact that everything is happening exactly as it should for the good of everyone involved. The lessons that will be learned, the people that will come into our lives, the ideas that will be brought to life because of these situations are all part of this grander and infinite plan that only God or the universe understands. Like, everything is supposed to happen in this way. And I'm not going to be able to change the course of something that's supposed to happen. So if I have sleepless nights, if I have worry, if I feel ill about things and people I can't change, it only is going to affect me and my well-being and probably my relationship with those people. And so I have decided to follow this philosophy of Byron Katie's to love what is, all of it, the good, the bad. It's something that I have to remember. I have to remind myself of it daily. But as I think of loving what is, and that the universe has my back, and that everything is playing out exactly as it is designed to, I have so much peace from that. There's another way of just kind of looking at this when you have these situations come up in your life. And Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School podcast brought up this way to think about things. And I really love it. And it's really easy to understand. She calls it having a manual for someone. So you can think about having a manual for like your dishwasher or your computer, like this is how it's supposed to work. Well, we have manuals for the people around us. Like everyone around us, we've designated in those manuals exactly how people are supposed to be, what they're supposed to say, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it. So you have a manual for your parents, you have a manual for your coworkers, your boss, your kid's teacher, the checkout lady at the store, the person next to you on an airplane. You have a manual for everyone. And if people don't live according to the manual that you've written for them, you are the one that gets upset. If you've ever heard yourself saying that somebody's doing something wrong, or she shouldn't have said that, or he shouldn't have done that, then you have a manual for them. I have a manual for people sitting next to a window on an airplane. My manual for people in the window seat is that you need to open the shade. You're supposed to open the shade when we're taking off our landings. What has happened to me recently is I fly Southwest a lot, and most of the time I forget to do the check-in 24 hours ahead. So I end up in like the B or C group. And what that means is you get on the plane last. There's not assigned seating. So you don't end up sitting in the back, but most likely the only seats that are left when I get on the plane are the middle seats, which is fine. I usually don't mind that because I take these short flights. But on the last few flights I've been on, the person next to me in the window seat has kept the shade down. Now, something you may not know about me is I love to fly. I especially love flying out of Orange County because this is a total side note, but when you fly out of Orange County, there's some kind of rules and regulations with that airport in Southern California that the airplanes have to get to a certain altitude very quickly, and then cut their engines as they go over the houses between the airport and the coast. So they always warn people. They're like, by the way, it's different here. We have to go very fast. Like it revs its engine and while it's still in place and then takes off like a rocket. And then it goes straight up. And then after you're in the air for about 8 seconds, they cut the engines. Well, the flight attendants always warn people that this is going to happen. And you get these looks like, wait, what did she just say? Because a lot of people don't like to fly. I love it. I want to put my hands up like I'm on a roller coaster, but the people next to me probably wouldn't appreciate that. I think it's so much fun. So I love to fly. I just love to fly. And I want to see what's going on out there. And if I can't sit right next to the window, then I'm usually like trying to kind of just inadvertently look out the window from the middle seat. The last 2 times I've flown, the person in the window seat has kept the shade closed the entire time. And it made me really mad. Why? I don't even know these people. I don't know why they keep the shade down. Maybe they don't want to see what's going on. But I have a manual for how they are supposed to act, right? If you're in the window seat, you're supposed to keep the shade up. And the people I was mad at, they didn't even know. They had no clue I was mad at them. Did it ruin the flight for me? A little bit. So I was the only one that had any kind of, problem with it. That's what I'm talking about. Like these expectations, these manuals that we have for people that end up making us feel a certain way, angry, frustrated. And it's just so unnecessary. If you let go of those expectations, and like the next time I get on a flight, I'm just going to have this expectation, like, you know what, they might have their shade down. And if they do, that's okay. If they don't, then that's great. But I'm not going to have the expectation they'll leave it up. It'll make me have so much more peace. I go into it thinking a different way. What about expectations like in relationships? Sometimes we feel unloved. because we have these expectations that, he really should have done this or said this, right? Fill in the blank. But when you have thoughts like that and you have a manual for someone else, it doesn't do anybody any good. I had a manual for my dad for a while. I was angry that he was acting in a certain way. And I could hear myself saying that a father shouldn't say or do things like that. And every time he didn't live up to these expectations of what a father and grandfather should do or the things he should say, the only one that was disappointed was me. He didn't care. He didn't even know. And I spent some time feeling angry with him and hurt about some of these situations. But doing this inner work has really helped me move past these thoughts and feelings. And I just started loving what is in the situation. It's made a huge difference, a huge difference. I want to say that loving what is doesn't mean that you have to support a decision. It doesn't mean that you have to love a way of living that you don't agree with. Okay. It's not that at all. Loving what is, for me, meant that I decided to love my dad and to accept that he is who he is. And he's not going to change. He's 80. He's not changing. And the beauty of it is that I don't need him to change so that I can be happy with him anymore. I can accept that he is where he is right now for a purpose, and I don't have to torture myself over it. And I've decided, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with him, but I still love him. And I'm letting what exists just be. It's so much easier that way. So now, if he does something that may not have been allowed in my previous manual for good fathers and good grandfathers, now if he does something, it doesn't bother me at all. I decided I wasn't going to suffer like that anymore with my own negative and destructive thoughts. And I threw the manual from my dad away. I threw it away like 2 years ago, and I feel so much better. He feels the same because he didn't know. But if you can throw away some of these manuals that you might have for people and situations, I can promise you're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel more peace. You're going to feel so much happier about things that are happening in your life right now. And it is all happening exactly as it was designed to happen for your highest good and for the highest good of everyone around you. What if these expectations are focused on you? So what if someone you love has expectations or a manual for you that you don't want to follow? This can be a really difficult situation to be in because sometimes it can feel like that person's love is conditional, like their love is conditioned upon you following their manual. One of my friends had just a recent situation with just this recent situation. I'll tell you the story in a second. It was very painful for her to experience. And I asked her if I could share it because it was one of the reasons why I started thinking about expectations and manuals and the damage that they can do. My friend started this boutique business. She's always wanted to have this boutique. And a few years ago, she started this cute little boutique. And the pandemic was very tough on her business. She tried to keep this business going, but it was already like operating on a very thin balance sheet. And she didn't have a lot of money in the bank. And she was overextended with inventory. She was past due on some invoices. She was past due on her lease. And of course, there was no customers coming in. As many of you know, having financial worries can give you a lot of anxiety, right? Financial worries can take you down. They can take you down. I mean, those are the kind of worries where you never get rid of that rock in your stomach. You're not sleeping. You can't concentrate. Like basically your body starts to shut down from this excessive stress. Like I talked about in a podcast a few episodes ago. And every time I talked with her, I could like literally feel this desperation like pouring out of her. But I couldn't help her in the way that she needed. She just needed a large infusion of cash. And so we just, so, I helped by like trying to give her options and trying to brainstorm the situation because she was really suffering with this financial anxiety. So as a last resort, and I mean last resort, she decided to go to her dad for help. She knew he had the money. So that wasn't a question. Like she knew that he could afford to help her. But he had never wanted her to open the shop, like never. Even though this had been a dream of hers since she was a little girl, he never wanted her to do that. Like he saw her talents and thought she should be doing other things and like going to work for someone else and moving up the corporate ladder and becoming a big shot somewhere. And he just like, he didn't want her to do this boutique. He thought it was silly. He thought it was childish. He had opinions about it. He was, always just like seemed so proud of her, right? The way he would talk about her to other people. He always talked about her talents and potential. But when she decided to instead open this boutique, he wasn't very supportive. So he was the last resort in asking for help. And even though she believed that he would probably give her the money, she just didn't want to go to him and get this lecture that she was sure that she was going to get, even though she's in her 30s, right? She's still afraid of the lecture from dad. I'm sure many of us can resonate with that, but she didn't really have a choice. So we sat down. I told her, I'm like, you have to stop agonizing over this. Like, this is really the only way out right now. Just call him, just get it over with right now. So she took a deep breath and she called him, and she was ready. Like she'd already prepped herself for this. You shouldn't have opened the boutique lecture. She was ready for it. But what she got was something else. What she got was worse. When I was watching her reaction on the phone, like she broke down. She broke down like and started sobbing hysterically. What he said to her on the phone, he actually started crying when she asked for this help. And he started crying, not because he was, sad for her situation. He was sad for himself. And he told her he was just so disappointed in her and her life. And he said that he'd been wanting to tell her for a while that every time he thought about her, he would just feel the deepest sadness because she just wasn't living her life right. And she was never, ever going to make anything of herself. I was like, he said, what? Yeah. But he was feeling all of that sadness and disappointment because she wasn't living her life according to his particular expectations. I mean, I look at her and I see this beautiful, intelligent, capable, responsible leader. Like she's this leader. She's amazing. She's this woman who believed in herself. She started her own business. She's good. She's kind. She's living this incredible, wonderful life. She's happy. And why would you do that to somebody? Why would you say that? So, I mean, I guess because he thought that because she needed his money, it gave him permission to pour his expectations out all over her and just crush her because she was crushed. She was crushed. Like, I think if she could have curled up in a ball in a fetal position, she would have. I mean, add she already had all of this financial anxiety going on, and then adding this this horrible weight from somebody she loved who said they were so disappointed in her. They cry every time they think about her because she'll never make anything of her life. She like, just went inward, and it was hard to watch. She was devastated. And and then he gave her the money. I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting on the sidelines watching it, but I'm sure that conversation will affect their relationship going forward, if there is one left at all, because now she knows what he thinks, right? And knowing those kind of thoughts are happening in the mind of someone you love usually means that you're going to be setting some boundaries. That's what it means to me. It's really not okay, right? What he did, according to the manual, right? Dads aren't supposed to act like that, right? Do you see how manuals keep popping up? And it can be hurtful situations like that. And that's when you have to, if you're going to use this loving what is philosophy, that's when you allow yourself to feel the emotions and grieve for the relationship, but also know that there's some reason that you experienced this, and now you're moving forward from it, right? And you can let it go. You don't have to let it sit in you. So I want to ask you, like, just consider, what are the expectations you might have for people in your life? And would you be willing to just accept them in their imperfections, believing that they are where they are supposed to be right now in this grander plan? Because here's the deal. A lot of people live their lives because of the expectations that other people have for them. I have friends who went to law school with me because it was what their parents wanted for them, but they're not happy being lawyers. And a few of them have even confided in me and told me that they know they're not living their life purpose, but they don't see an easy way out now, right? Now they're relying on their salary and the prestige, and now they have other obligations where they couldn't just walk away from being a lawyer, even though it doesn't light them up. And it never did. They did it for their parents. So ask yourself if the expectations you have for another person might be holding them back from living their divine purpose in this world. And of course, I know everyone's free to make their own decisions. And if you know your purpose is to do a particular thing, that I believe you should absolutely go after it. But I know it's hard. And I just want to give space to the fact that when there are these other expectations for you, it can be very difficult to step away from that. It's one more thing to overcome, and it can affect relationships. So I don't talk about this lightly. I really don't. I personally know, because I have been in those shoes. If there's one thing I could impress upon you today to improve your life, to improve your relationships, to improve your day, and to create more peace and more happiness in your life, it would be this. It would be to start loving your life and all the parts of it, all the bad parts along with the good, right? Start loving what is more. That's when you'll be able to live your life more fully. You will feel like your life is more meaningful. When you stop having so many expectations for people, you really do have a more lightness of being and peace in your heart and in your chest. The breathing's easier. You just feel so much better. Throw away the manuals. Throw away those thoughts of it's not supposed to be this way. Because if it has happened, it was supposed to be that way. And if someone has a manual for you that is stopping you from leading a purposeful and meaningful life, it's time to have a heartfelt conversation. It could be a difficult conversation, a difficult heartfelt conversation. Have that conversation with the person. And if they are going to force you to make a choice between living their manual or living your purpose, I hope you have the courage to step away from that relationship. You have a divine purpose in life. There's only one you out there, you guys. There's only one you with the talents and the situations and the environment that you have in your life. And you were put here with those talents and in this certain place because you have a purpose. Every single person has a purpose. And your role is extremely important in the universal plan, and it affects, the lives of others. And that's why you should be seeking out that purpose and trying to live that purpose. And you can only live your purpose and actually find it and live it when you don't have all of these things weighing you down. You don't have that heaviness and worry weighing you down, or you're not quick to anger. Right? You are more open to opportunities and light in your life if you are not living with those kinds of things going on. Now, the road to finding your purpose and living your purpose is never straight. It's never a straight road. It's always up or down, right? It's a hill. And I don't know, what's that street in San Francisco? It's like that. Lombardi Street, I think it's called. It's always like that. So there's always these hills and valleys and squigglies, and they're all part of the plan. They're all part of this plan to get you to a place of abundance, a place of happiness, because the universe has your back. And every person in the world is also going through this, every single person. So if I'm looking at the lives of my children, or one of my children, and I'm not seeing it go straight, and so I'm having a lot of worry, that doesn't really make sense in the overall scheme of things, right? Nobody's life is straight. It just doesn't work that way. There are hills and valleys for everyone. And that person that you're thinking about all the time, they might be in a valley right now. That's okay. That's part of how it's supposed to be for them. When you can start loving what is in every aspect of your life and continually improving yourself, then that is where you are going to find this peace that you and all of us truly need. Thank you for listening today. I've been thinking about this podcast for a while, especially since this Karen movement started, right? This whole idea of, she's being a Karen means that she's not doing it right, or she's doing something she's not supposed to do. And those kind of thoughts about people never serve you, right? When you have anger or, you're upset with somebody, or you're thinking poor thoughts about them, that never serves you. It doesn't bring you to a higher level, to your highest vibration. So I've been thinking about expectations a lot, not only with my own personal life experiences, but just like the world in general. So I thank you so much for being here today. I hope that what I have said has helped you in some way. I invite you to share this podcast if you think it would be beneficial to somebody that you know. I also want to invite you to subscribe so that you can know when new podcasts hit the air. I don't know what that's called, right? When they're dropped. I don't know the lingo. But if you're new here, you might find some of the previous episodes very helpful as well. And then would it be okay if I hit you up for a review? First of all, I would want to know in your review, I'd love to know how the podcast has had an impact in your life, or if it has just given you some insight and perspective that you didn't have before. I would love to know that. And the more reviews that a podcast has, the more it shows up in searches, and that would really help us to grow. If you're able to do a review, screenshot it, send it over to my team at yourtodaystory@gmail.com. And what'll happen is we'll reach out to you by email and ask for your address so we can send you a Your Today Story notepad you can put on your nightstand so that you can write down your thoughts about how you're going to show up the next day and be ready to set your intention first thing in the morning. And of course, you guys, there's always more information and freebies on my website, ginakershaw.com. I will link to all of the things I mentioned in this podcast as well in the show notes. Okay, that's it for this episode. I hope you have a great week.